I'm like a VIP with a backstage pass, got a front row seat on the edge of this bed.
Zach, welcome to Backstage Agents. We're
Thank
happy
you.
to have you here.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
We're really excited.
I'm glad someone's at least smoke. I don't smoke, but I'm glad someone is at least holding up the Nashville cigar element here.
You gotta represent.
That's right.
Yeah, Dan is leading the charge. It's a little early for me yet. So, but Zach,
Yeah.
we've been friends for a super long time.
Yes.
We went to college together. That's how we met.
Yeah.
A northerner and a southerner.
13 years ago.
13 years ago. Pretty wild. And so we both came here to play music, and we ended up actually working together in that world quite a bit. And then now, hilariously enough, we are both in the real estate world, and we work together quite a bit in that world. So can you just start, why Nashville?
Nashville was easy. I mean, this was far enough away from Texas, but close enough to Texas. And it was the music capital of the world in my book. And it was, I could play Division I baseball at Belmont. So that was a no-brainer. It was just the perfect combination of everything. I was playing baseball. That was like my number one want when I was looking at colleges, was I wanted to go to a competitive baseball school. And so, looking everywhere, obviously had some great opportunities at, frankly, much better baseball schools, but they just didn't offer anything but baseball. It would have been only baseball and baseball alone. And it was like, well, what would you major in if you went to, the University of Maryland or whatever? I'm like, I don't know. So, but finding Belmont and Nashville was like, oh, I could keep doing music. I could be more ingrained in the music scene. I could learn about music. I could, really dive into that. And so that seemed really interesting. So when they were like, and we have a Division I baseball team, I'm like, sold. So it was perfect. It was the perfect mix of both.
Nice. Did you play baseball at Belmont?
Yeah, freshman year.
Okay.
Yeah.
Because I was like, I don't remember him playing baseball at all.
Oh, that's funny, because I
Belmont.
feel like most people that knew me freshman year only knew me as like wearing the baseball stuff, because you just were like, it was just like practice all day, class all day, practice all day, and that was it. So I was always wearing like our swag. No, not just clacking around. No, but just always wearing. I always had the sweatpants or the ball cap and the shirts and the overcoats and whatever. Like, I don't know.
So why'd you stop playing baseball at Belmont?
I was focusing more on music. There wasn't, I just didn't see a path where baseball was going to be really like the long-term answer, especially through Belmont. I probably should have gone to one of the better schools, one of the schools where I really had a better opportunity for that. And so I just was like, you know what? I actually debated that. I debated switching out and all that, but I was like, I love Nashville. I love the people I have here. And I still feel that way. I still just think this is the coolest city. And I'm like, man, I could quit doing music tomorrow. I could just get some 9-to-5, regional manager or something job somewhere, and I'd still want to live here because I just love this city. So
What is it about Nashville specifically that you love?
I feel like it's just the right size. I call it a small town in a big city. It's a big city. I mean, there's a million things to do, a million places to go, a million restaurants we haven't tried yet. There's always something new. There's always new people that you're meeting, like you, Dan. It's like, hey, cool, here's somebody I don't know. But at the same time, what are the when you and I started talking, and we started talking about doing this, you're like, well, yeah, down Nashville Cigar, we hang out there all the time. And I'm like, dude, I live like a minute up the street here. Like what are the odds? There's always somebody somewhere. And the amount of times that we will just randomly go down the street to Hattie B's to get some food and run into people we know there, it feels like a bit of a small town vibe. And even as it's grown, it's grown exponentially since you and I moved here 13 years ago. It still feels that way, even though there's how many hundreds of thousands of more people that live here.
Yeah, it is wild. I do love that small town feel still, because you run into, especially as long as we've been here, you run into people that pretty much everywhere.
Yeah.
So, which can be good and bad. But
And especially when you have places you frequent, people know you, and it's like, oh, hey, there's Christian. What's up, man?
Yeah.
Were you with me the day we went to Hattie B's and the lady knew my order verbatim?
No, I wasn't with you that day. But yeah.
I remember being with some music buddies. That was years ago. But yeah, that was the day I realized I might go to Hattie B's a little too often.
Yeah, I feel that. I have a couple of those spots that I frequent where they know my drink order right when I walk in the door. Don't even have to say anything.
That's right.
They just start making it.
It's just like, 3 tenders, hot mac and cheese, 3 ranches, comeback sauce, and a fry. And I'm like, all right, I need to take a break, you guys. This is a cry for help.
Yeah, that's funny. So explain to me, you're an artist.
Yeah.
And so explain to me kind of your journey in being an artist and how that started. And because we've done, probably hundreds of gigs together back in the day. So, which for me, it was like my first formal experience playing in a band and learning music was actually in your band. And I learned so much just going around the country and playing with you at a young age. And
I'm sorry, can you speak more clearly into the mic and say, Zach taught me everything I know. Here, I'll write it down for
something like that.
We already went through this last episode. I found out Christian plays bass.
Yeah.
I thought he meant bass.
Right.
Yeah.
Just big fisherman.
Apparently he plays bass.
Yeah. He does. And really freaking well, too. That's
your band.
That's right. And that was all me.
Talk about that.
Yeah. So that was my first formal, this is my band, I'm going to get a group together kind of thing. Mm-hmm. I say that. I probably threw together some bands for a purpose. We had one show or something, and it was like, oh, shoot, I need a band. Hey, you play guitar. Can you play for me? But, that was the first time it was like, we're going to go on a tour. We're going to play a whole bunch of shows all over the place. And so let's put a crew together that's going to be tight and consistent and be able to really perform the show that we need to put on. So that was a total learning experience for me too, trying to figure out how to do that. And you were my MD, my music director. And so it was like, if the question came up like, hey, what, and that was because he's got an encyclopedic music knowledge, his ability to know, hey, there's a stop here, or the song goes bum, 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 and everybody needs to play that together, except for the drummer, you do this. He could tell other people how to play their instrument.
We could do a session.
And it wasn't just because he's bossy. Right. It was, he could actually drive the train and help when there was a question. And it's like, well, I thought it did this. And somebody else is like, no, I think we do this. Christian was like, everybody'd turn and be like, what do we do? And he'd be like, you do this, you do that. And this is what everybody had. And we're like, got it. And it was great. I was tremendously blessed to have you there for that process, because even though we were all new and green to kind of the everything about it, having someone who was that good musically, we didn't have to quite suffer through the Nirvana, let's all suck together for a while and then eventually we'll be famous.
Do you have a tour bus?
Do you remember going in the Explorer, the Ford Explorer?
I do remember driving around the country for a while in the Ford Explorer.
That was interesting. We rented a U-Haul, which is interesting because U-Haul would not rent to Ford Explorers. Something about they said because of if you remember in the early 2000s when Firestone tires had a problem blowing, right, it became some sort of insurance issue for U-Haul, and so they banned Ford Explorers from their list. And I don't know if that's still true, but it meant every time we went to rent a trailer, I had to borrow a friend's truck to go rent the trailer, and then I'd put it on my Ford Explorer.
Did you all drive? Did you all share the...
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, we'd just squeeze in. And
this is 20 years old?
We're probably 19, 20, 21. Yeah,
I was surprised we were allowed to rent trailers and things like that.
I mean, we were kids, man, and we were in every sense of the term when it comes to playing music and figuring out how to tour. And I had a person up in Wisconsin that I knew who kind of walked me and a little bit of us, and us, through a little bit of the process at the time, who'd kind of done this touring around the country a little bit, hooked us up with a booking agent, and basically said, as nicely as he could, these shows are going to suck, but it's going to be good for you guys. And hooked us up with a booking agent.
And frankly, he was right. That's about the best way to say it. Mm-hmm. This is going to suck, but it's like going through boot camp.
Yeah, and it's 100% what we did. We would drive around the country, and we're not talking places that are close to Nashville either. We're talking New Mexico and Wyoming. And there's this club circuit that you can do, and you'll play Monday to Sunday, 4 or 5 hours a night. And for like empty rooms of people.
For nobody,
covers.
yeah. And we would play, the good news too, we got to play originals as well.
Yeah.
So that was nice, but it was, for 5 hours, and at 19 years old, I didn't have 5 hours of covers. The lessons we learned from that are hire people who can sing, because Zach cannot sing 7 5-hour shows a week, every week for 3 months.
Yeah.
That's not doable. So it was, but that was it. That was kind of the thing. You learned all those random little lessons, and how to deal with people, and how to work with promoters and an agent, and how to put together better materials. And it was, you got gigs, and you got turned down for gigs, and so everything just made you better. And then you'd have a guitar player that needed to sub out, so you'd learn how to play with a new guy. You kind of learn how to bring somebody into the fold and do that smoothly. And it was a life, just it was music life boot camp. Let's throw you into this fire.
Yep.
And it's gonna suck, but you're gonna be so much better because of it.
Yeah, and it was one of those too. Again, me being the stickler that I am, is like we learned all of those covers like down pat. It wasn't like, hey guys, here's the chord chart. Let's read this off of Ultimate Guitar and hope we all land in the same place. Like
let's make it up and guess as we go.
We knew those covers like
straight up.
Country stuff?
Country and rock.
And primarily.
Yeah,
I don't think we played a lot of Katy Perry.
No Katy Perry. I don't think we did any pop stuff.
I don't know that we did. We might have done something that like was considered pop when it came out, but wouldn't be now. Like the Black Crows or something like that. I don't know. But that was fun, man. And I say it was fun. I don't know that it was very fun at the time. At the time, it was a lot of work, and it was a grind, and it was tough.
Yeah.
But,
because we did. I think it was like 7 or 8 weeks of just that circuit one summer. It was right after we graduated
we left
college.
And didn't come back for like 2 or 3 months.
Yeah.
It's basically the full summer. They told me I wasn't going to graduate because I had switched to the music school halfway through. So they said, there's no way you can finish this. You got 1 semester left, and you got all these classes you got to finish. And so you'll just have to come back and finish in the summer or in the fall. And I was like, I'm gonna be honest with you, not gonna do that. Because a lot of it was also like these prerequisite things and stuff like that. I was like, don't get me wrong. I want to finish out my music theory classes because I want to learn more. Anything that I felt actually had a lot of value, I was like, I really want to do that. But I'm not coming back to check these other random boxes that you require for your own accreditation. So I was like, if you will let me just do all of this at once and finish it this semester, we can do that, and I'll do that. But if not, then I'm probably just never going to graduate. And frankly, that bummed me out. I was like, that sucks. I did all this work. Like I want to graduate. So will you let me do this? And fortunately, I was good friends with Dr. Bridges at the time.
Yep.
I'd seen her a lot, and she was kind of the woman in charge of all that. So I went to her office and pitched it to her, and she was like, if you want to do it. I put the whole schedule together, and I was like, basically I'm going to be in classes from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. every day, but I'm okay with that if you are. And she said, okay, go for it. So she signed off on it and let me. It was 26 credit hours, and that's not counting then all the 0 hours I also had to do. But
what was a normal semester again? In terms of credit hours?
Well, I think they say full-time is 16, but for us, it was usually more like 18.
Yeah.
We usually took a couple more to finish, I feel like.
Yeah, and we had all those random 0 credit classes.
Yeah, and you'd have friends that would have like a 19 or 20-hour semester, and that was always like a busy semester.
Don't get a music degree.
26 was, so 26 was rough, but that was, it's kind of like the boot camp thing. It was, it was thrown in the fire, and I found that like when I'm kind of backed into a corner, I tend to perform pretty well. And I don't know if that just comes from years of playing baseball at a highly competitive level or what, but that was just kind of how I worked. And so I actually made Dean's List. It was the only time I made Dean's List my entire college career, but 26 credit hours, and I made it. I think it's because I just couldn't stop working. There was no option. It was like, all right, I'm going to do this. I'm going to finish that paper, and I'm going to print that, and now I got to go back to class, and I got to do that, and then I got to, it was just, there was no option to stop. You just had to keep moving. Yeah. And I feel like that's kind of what, that's something that plays too into doing this whole thing. This is all, it's such a business, but it's personal. You don't just show up 9 to 5 and get business. You have to continue to grind before and after. You have to, instead of going to the weight room before a game and after a game, you're going to networking events at night and you're waking up early to do paperwork. It's always kind of, how do you manage the outside portion and the behind the scenes stuff that nobody sees? Because I think some people have that idea that when we're doing real estate, that we're a person that appears on the phone a couple times a week, and then we just disappear and we don't do any, what are we really doing? And it's like, well, we're doing a lot. Like, if you want to come with me and see it, you can. But man, it's, we were talking about paperwork earlier. It's like, well, you're going to have to do a lot of paperwork. And I was like, I think that's what we're going to have to do then. Whatever that paperwork is, let's get through it if that's what makes this happen. Yeah. Because I got clients who are trying to sell this place. So if that means doing a whole bunch of extra work, that's what it means.
Yeah. So explain to me now, because I don't think, much like me, I don't think real estate was much on your radar in terms of actually getting your license and selling homes. I know that you had an interest in rental properties and you own a rental property yourself, but walk me through how you ended up in real estate in addition to doing music.
Yeah, so one of the most important things to learn as a musician is you always need multiple income streams. And we'll talk about that from a professional level. If you're Taylor Swift, right, you can't rely on only touring. She makes a ton of money touring, but 2020 COVID happens. She can't tour anymore. Well, now what's she going to do? How's she going to pay her people? How is she going to keep her agency and whatnot? So she's got, brand deals with Coca-Cola and whoever else and Capital One and whatnot. So that's another income stream. She's got, streaming. She's got YouTube stuff. So as a musician, most people don't make $1 billion like Taylor Swift has now. Most people are just trying to cobble together a few grand from this, a few grand from that, a few grand from this kind of thing. And so if I can make, 20 grand a year touring, and then 20 grand a year doing regular music, and then 20 grand a year on my Spotify and streaming services, I can cobble together $100,000 a year, which is a great living for most people. So that's always been a huge thing on my mind. And so to me, real estate became, I've always been fascinated with investing and how can you, let things like your money work for you. And so I was listening to podcasts and reading books and magazines and newspaper articles and anything that just came across my desk that looked interesting. And after years of listening to things like Bigger Pockets and, doing stuff like that, it was like, man, it seems like all the smart, super rich people, they all seem to have a very vested interest in real estate. And the more I broke into that and broke that down, I was like, I live with a friend of ours, and I was like, he bought that house, and I remember being with him, and I knew what he paid for the house, and I knew what his mortgage was, and I know I pay him $500 a month, I know he pays him $500 a month, I know you pay him $500. I'm like, so he lives in the house, and he's making like $400 a month just living in this house, and he gets to live there, and he pays no rent. Yeah,
we did after college for like a year.
And it was a great deal. He he charged us way less than he should have on rent and stuff, and I got to store like my van and trailer there and things. Like it was a sweet gig for sure. But it was just one of those things where I was like, that's genius. I was like, why couldn't I do that? What would I have to do to get into that? And so the more because I couldn't buy a $10 million, apartment building or something. I didn't have that kind of capital, but it was like, could I just buy a home and own a home and then rent some of the rooms out to my buddies? And that way I could cut down on my mortgage costs, because again, these income streams, it's like, and then that would become a new stream of income for me. And then if I could, and that's when I learned about FHA loans and things like that. And so then it's like, oh, well, you have to live there for a year. So I was like, if I bought a place, lived there for a year, then I could move out, continue renting it. I'd have a really low down payment because I bought it FHA. And after living there for a little over a year, I could move out and move into a new place. And I could, keep doing this until I had built up a little portfolio of my own. And so in 2019, my family had been doing real estate in Nashville for 20 something years. And so I went to them and said, I know nothing about this. How do I do this? And they walked me through the process. They're super knowledgeable and amazing. And I'm not going to plug them. They're fantastic. And so they gave me everything I needed to know. They gave me all the info. They walked me through it. We saw a ton of houses. And eventually I found one where I think this is the magic one. And it's truly been the greatest investment. It's the best money decision I've ever made in the history of my life. There's nothing that has, my wife was left a pretty solid portfolio of like stocks and stuff from her grandparents. Your grandparents buy you stocks when you're kids and stuff. So she's got some stocks that are like, 40 something years old or whatever. And they don't touch the house that I bought 5 years ago. It's like, yeah, that's still the best idea we've had. And so very grateful for those stocks. One day I'm sure those will pay off, but it's like, we're kind of still waiting. Yeah. So then you can't live in a stock. Yeah. Worst case scenario, if something happened, if everything kind of went south, we own a house that we can live in. I just was like, this is genius. This is great. Everybody should do this. I don't know why more people don't do this. Yeah. And going through that process too, I learned a lot about real estate and realtors, specifically. And so, then it became something I had friends asking me about. Hey, how did you do that? What do you, I knew things, but I didn't feel like I knew things. And so when COVID came around and we couldn't do any music, all those income streams went away. I was like, well, I don't want to spend this time. I worked at Target for a while because I just needed a job. And so I worked at Target for like a year. But while I was doing that, I was like, if I'm going to be spending time doing work, it needs to be working towards something that has long-term benefit, not just short-term, not just I need a job and a gig right now. And so that was Target. So Target was the short-term, let's make a little bit of money right now. And then I went and started working on my license and got my license. Because that way.
You had the house already before Target.
Yeah, yeah.
A lot of people get a job from a musician.
Oh, yeah.
So they can have
they need a W-2
like Christian
or something. Yeah.
Say, here, look, I've worked.
Yeah. Yeah. No. I fortunately I had enough cash. I went through the old-fashioned way. I brought in all my 1099s and all that music. That's the stuff he's so great at. Is he actually understands why we have all these crazy income things.
Big challenge.
Because most people just go, oh, I've worked at this accounting firm for 20 years. Here's my W-2, and it's like, all right, great. You're good. So that was
I worked at
a little different.
This taco stand. I played under an umbrella.
Yeah.
But here's my paper. You had your paperwork. A lot of people don't have their paperwork.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Spend a lot of time chasing paperwork
down. Oh, man, that's got to be a nightmare.
Yeah. I mean, you have your days with it. So, generally, at the end of the day, it's one of those things. The process is not going to move forward until I have the paperwork. So if the person is not super motivated, then they're just going to fall off anyway. And I can only follow up so many times before it's just like, okay, this person...
I don't feel like you really want this.
You don't want this bad enough, because the people who want it and who've been working towards it, they'll find it and get it to you very, very quickly within a day or two. But you'll have those people who are kind of just turning over rocks, and they can be a little bit harder. Like, hey man, I'm still missing this bank statement or whatever, this 1099 or your tax returns, and everything is just a battle to get it from them. So I'm like, I don't think you want to do this that much anyway. So a lot of time chasing paperwork.
I think clients are great, and we live to serve the clients, obviously. But I think it's interesting because most often the client is the least the least knowledgeable, the least experienced person in the room. And so, if we're working with like our dream team, like me, you, and, Liam Schnell on insurance, if we're working all of us together, we have our process, we know each other. It's like, it's like Michael Jordan and Scottie Pippen, just, passing the ball around. They know where they're going to be. Don't even have to look. Just no look pass behind your back. And it's like, there he is, got the ball, shoot the J, win the game. And it's no problem. But then every now and then it's like the client sometimes is like throwing in, some new guy, just if they grabbed one of the fans from the stands to play with the 97 Bulls.
Dad. Right?
And
or the uncle, right?
It's
the general contractor.
Yeah, or the new construction.
Right.
Yeah, I think a lot of times the problem comes from, and it's people who want to understand things, and that's why I say, like, please ask me questions. Like, if you have questions, please call me. Like, you will never be bothering me. If you call me at 9:00 at night, I will answer the phone and answer your question. Like, I want to make sure you know what's going on with your money and your home and your transaction. This is super important. But I think sometimes people are just afraid to ask those questions, so then they don't. But then they bring up that question to their uncle, and then their uncle is, has an opinion on it, but no facts. So he shares his opinion on it, and then they call me and spout it back as fact. Like, well, my uncle said that this always happens. And I'm like, no, that's never happened. That's not legal. That's not. No, your uncle is wrong. I'm sure he's a nice guy, but that's wildly inaccurate, And so it's like, just the next time you have these questions, just call me, call us, because also there's a million things I don't know. And so that's also important. It's like, call me, because if there's something that we don't know, something I've never thought of or didn't foresee or whatever, that happens. We'll call Christian, because, hey, that's a money question. Christian's going to have the answer. I called you the other day. I was like, I've never heard this term before in my life. What are they talking about? And he went, oh, yeah, of course, that's this. And immediately I had an answer. And I was like, oh, okay. Nobody has ever asked me that question ever. And I even called the first people I called was my aunt and uncle who've been doing it for 20 years here in Nashville. And I was like, they'll know. And they usually do. But I was like, what does this mean? And she went, in what? What are they? And so I was like, it's like a spelling bee. Can you use it in a sentence? It's like, this is what happened. This is what the agent asked me. This is what she said the buyer's looking for. Does that mean anything to you? And she was like, I have no idea. I've never heard anybody say that. And so I called Christian, and Christian was like, oh, they mean this and this and this and that. And it was just immediately we had an answer. We knew what was going on, and I knew the next 3 people I had to call to get the answer to the question.
Sounds like things haven't changed much. Like, Christian has the answers. You're in a band.
That's pretty.
It's called real estate now.
No, I don't like that. Can we delete that? Let's delete that. I don't like that at all. Don't tell him that.
He tends to have the answers. But that's good. Someone needs to know the answer.
I don't know all the answers, but
all right, I'm gonna find a new lender. Thanks, man. This was fun. I'm gonna keep going. I can't. His ego is just gonna be so big.
It compounds the process when you're working with somebody. It puts them through an experience, right?
Mm-hmm. And that's the idea. And I obviously Christian doesn't do all my deals, and Liam doesn't handle all the insurance, because people I always tell people, use someone you know, like, and trust. Those are the 3 key ingredients. And if you've got, I've got friends who they're like, hey man, I love you. I would totally use you, but my mom lives in Nashville and is also a real estate agent. And I'm like, fair enough. Like, use your mom, man. Because if anybody's going to fight for you and look out for you, it's probably going to be your mom. Like, do that. I've also had people go, look, man, my sister is an agent, and there's no way I'm going to use her.
It's a typical thing.
Because I don't want to mix the family and the thing, and if something goes south, it's like, okay, whatever if you're comfortable with it, that's the most important thing. And so, I've had people where I go, man, I got a great lender, and they go, oh man, I've already got one. My college roommate does that, so I'm working with him. Like, okay. And sometimes, and I would say a lot of times, I've mostly had fine experiences with those people. I've also had horrible experience. I've also been calling Christian and going, can you please answer this question for me, because the other guy has no idea what he's talking about. And and that happens too. Sometimes it's, they know, like, and trust them, but maybe they shouldn't. It's like, and so, like I said, it's just, you get new people on the court. And so it's always beneficial for us. I think the process just goes smoother when you're just working with people, because you already, like we said, we've been working together in many capacities for years. So we just have like a pretty easy, natural ability to talk to each other, work with each other. We kind of know what each other's going to be thinking and how to take the right steps and answer each other's questions and things like that. Whereas working with new people, it's just, it's new. You're learning, you're figuring each other out. You're trying to, make sure that you're understanding what they're saying and things like that. So,
yeah, we know the expectations with each other, and that's what's good. And like, I know my job is to make you look like a rock star, much like when we were playing.
That's right.
I'm not the artist and the transaction. I'm not the centerpiece. You're the centerpiece, and my job is to make you look like a rock star in every transaction and make it go as smooth as possible. It's a real estate transaction. Stuff is going to come up. Yeah. And it's about putting out the fires quickly and making sure everybody's linked in and is communicating well. I've not had one that is not stressful. They're all stressful for one reason or another, but it's about keeping as much of that off the client as humanly possible and dealing with as much of it behind the scenes as humanly possible.
Exactly.
And learning when the client needs to be brought in versus not, and just kind of keeping everything moving at the surface level. And it's very much, I just remember playing music, and when I was touring heavily, you're trying to absorb as much as you can for the artist so they can just walk out there and do their thing. And man, we've had miserable nights. And you're taking that on as the band so they can walk out there and still give the same show that they do every night. And that's very much like what I try and do and accomplish on the real estate side is let's take on and deal with as many of these problems behind the scenes and quietly as possible so Zach can go out there and do his thing and have a great experience, and we'll continue to get referred in that world. So and that kind of brings me to the next thing. What skills from music and playing baseball do you feel that are translatable to doing real estate? Because I've found that there's a ton of translatable skills from music to doing real estate.
Well, everything in music is network. Mm-hmm. You have to have a network of people. You have to know a million bass players. You have to know a million guitar players. You have to know a million publishers and songwriters. And, you've always got to have someone in your back pocket, or also know that maybe I don't have that person in my back pocket, but if I need, if we're trying to make something happen, I need whatever, I can go, hey, Christian, can you call your buddy Dan and see if, Luke Bryan would do that, or whatever. Like, you've got to have, even if I don't have the connection, I'm connected with someone who has the connection. And I actually just had that happen in real estate. I constantly keep up my network of people, contractors, insurance, mortgage, you name it, whoever it is. Like, I need to have 5 or 6 numbers, because I had a client who, they were coming into town for just a week, and while they were here, they wanted to get some things fixed on they have a second home here. They wanted to get some things fixed on it. And so she said, I said, do you need any help or anything? No, I'll just call the contractor that we had do it a couple years ago. I'm like, okay, sounds great. So I reached out the week of, like, hey, you guys are in town this week. How's everything going? Well, we've never heard back from the contractor. And I'm like, wait, what? Which again is kind of one of those where I'm like, I wish you'd have called me sooner. But I'm like, what? Oh, wait, why? What happened? She's like, I don't know. He, my son's texted him. I've texted him. My husband's texted him. No idea. No clue. And I'm like, okay, how long are y'all here? She's like, 3 more days. I'm like, trying to get someone to come out and do a job in 3 days is tricky. I was like, I tell you what, give me 5 minutes. And I sent her 2 other contractors that I knew did a really good job. And I called a couple friends of mine that are realtors in the same area, and was like, do you know anybody in that area that would be, good at this? And they were sure. So I got a couple extra numbers and I sent those to her. And sure enough, and within an hour, she was like, great, I got 3 appointments And so is coming tomorrow, and so is going to come this afternoon. And before they left, the job was done.
I think this is so different. What makes Nashville so different than other places, maybe someone's going to see this from far off places. This tight knit community, that's so translatable from music into real estate. I think it should be like the standard in a sense. So there's so many people working against each other, but when you get people working together for the goal,
right?
We're going to try to get this closed. We're going to try to get this solved.
Yeah.
Instead of fighting to be right.
Excuse me.
We're gonna fight so hard so we're right about this thing. It seems like you guys in your little dream chamber,
Yeah. Well, there's room for everybody. Just because you do a deal, just because you get to sell Josiah his house,
right?
I would like to sell Josiah his house, but that's okay. Like if like and trust him. If that's the person for you, great. I would rather you have a great experience than you bail on someone that like and trust to use me or my person, and then feel like somehow you got screwed or it wasn't quite right or something didn't work.
Hattie B's,
right? That's right. Yeah.
See them next week. So
it's a small town. Everybody kind of knows everybody.
That's, to me, I come from Florida and selling real estate there. It's just like, we're never going to see each other again. It's very transactional. Here, it's very much a relationship.
And that's in music too. You never want to burn a bridge because you're gonna run into these people. I ran into a guitar player that I hadn't seen in years from a gig that I was on just this past weekend after doing some CMA shows. I haven't seen this guy in 2 years, but you will run into these people, and you want to make sure that they don't want to stab you in the heart when you run into them.
They teach this at Belmont?
No.
This should be a course.
But I feel like you kind of learn. That's one of those things, like of all the things you learn in college that they don't actually teach you in college.
Yeah.
I think that's one of those things, because Belmont is also a very tight-knit school. Mm-hmm. So when you don't show up for your friend's seminar and screw them over on that, everybody hears about it. And by that afternoon, you get back to your dorm room, and the guy that lives down the hall is like, hey, I heard you bailed on Sam's seminar. And you're like, shoot, how does everybody know this? It's like, and so I feel like it's one of those, they don't teach it, but you kind of learn it. Yeah, if you're smart, you pick up on it, you figure it out.
I think music and real estate, they're sink or swim. You either start to pick up on this stuff very, very quickly and figure out how the job is done, or you're just not going to be successful in either industry, because you only have so many times of showing up late or not coming prepared into a room or not closing a deal before people just aren't going to call you. And that's how that's how people are going to know you. That guy doesn't come prepared. I have hundreds of players in my phone that I don't recommend for gigs because I know their level of preparation coming into the situation is not up to par for me. And I have a very tight-knit community of every instrument that I can go down. It's maybe 4 or 5 guys of each instrument that I will recommend. And I know hundreds of players in this town. And that's just the way it is. And real estate's very much the same, where you nobody teaches you these things. Nobody sits down and goes, this is what you need to do. This is how you need to do it. A lot of it is common sense, but in the world today,
but the good ones figure it out. The smart ones,
Yeah, and the guys who really excel, they figure it out quickly and they have it down to a science.
And I've had tons of situations where even just in real estate, and I haven't been doing real estate nearly as long as I've done music, but the amount of times that I was at a class, for education and such, and we're sitting there, and I think it was code of ethics or something. We were just talking about how to be an ethical realtor and all these things, and probably 100 people sitting in this room, and they're talking through everything, and they're like, all right, we're gonna take. Oh, they mentioned they had a question or something. And I raised my hand. And I said, I have a question about that because I've been working with this builder and it's been an issue. And we're not allowed to name, of course, who it is. So I didn't say the name. I said, I won't mention them, but they're this larger builder that builds a lot and blah, 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 blah. And so I just, I don't, how do you recommend we handle those types of situations? And the lady gave me a pretty good answer. And so afterwards, someone from across the room comes over and goes, and I'm not going to say the real name, but, are you talking about Bob's Builders? And I'm like, maybe, and she was spot on, because she was like, yep, we've had the same problem. Like, I've been there, done that with them. And so it's like everybody knows everybody. Everybody's got a little insight. And the amount of times that, you'll be like, someone recommended this contractor or this home inspector or whatever. And somebody will be like, here's the problem. Here's why I wouldn't call that guitar player.
Yep.
And here's 4 different, everybody makes mistakes, but here's like 4, 5, 6 different examples of this person consistently not doing their job. And you're like, all right, cool. Yeah. And unfortunately, I've seen that with the worst realtor I've experienced in my time.
Don't say their name.
I won't say their name. It's,
you know who you mean, though.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
The worst realtor I've experienced, and it was mainly just the principle. When you see something go wrong and you're kind of like, wow, if they didn't do that right, what else are they doing wrong, right? And he called me. We were closing on a $700,000 house, and we had gone under contract at $725,000, and this guy does a ton of business. He's very successful. 20, 30 deals a year, probably sells close to $10 million in homes a year. Way more business than I do. And I call him up and I say, hey man, it's the date, and that means per the contract, this is what's happening and this is where we're at. And because of the home appraisal, this is the deal. And when I called the lender, that's what they were like, yep, that's what we got. I called the buyers I was working with, and they're like, yep, that's what we got. I called the insurance agent. Yep, that's what I got. Everybody I call is like, totally. I called the listing agent on the home and tell him all this, and he goes, wait, no, that's not right. And I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? Everybody else knows it's right. What's wrong? He's like, well, no, I thought that we were going to, is that what it said? And I'm like, in the contract? Yeah, that's what we wrote in the contract. And I can tell he's talking to himself, but he still said it out loud. Oh yeah, I probably should have read that. And I'm like, you didn't even read the contract? Like, you didn't read, like, we sent you over an offer for $725,000 and you took it and you just handed it to your client and went, yeah, why not? Yeah. It's like, well, no. Open that. Like, that's your whole job. We're not lawyers, but I tell people people who don't sometimes understand quite what we do. I'm like, sort of think of it like going into court with or without a lawyer. You want someone there who really knows the process, who really knows what's going on, who really knows how to talk to everybody else involved in this, who can guide you through how to do this best. And at the end of the day, we'll ask you, do you want to plead guilty or not guilty? That's up to you. Do you want to buy the house or not buy the house? We'll let you make all the decisions, but I'll guide you through the process and how to do it.
You read to the attorney.
And yeah.
Well, and in situations like that, you can cost your client an astronomical amount of money. If you slide something in that contract on the buyer's side that goes seller to pay for title expenses, and that's not something that gets mentioned to his client or her client on the other side of that, and then all of a sudden you're going back and forth and being like, it's in the contract. They have now caught on a $725,000 home, they've costed their client $5,000.
Oh yeah, it was tens of thousands of dollars of a mistake for them. Yeah. And it was like, man, that's on you. And now he's got to call his clients and go, hey guys, so turns out this is the deal we made. Yeah. And they're going to ask, why didn't we know that? Mm-hmm. And I mean, he might have lied to him and made something up. I don't know, but it's kind of hard to make up whatever lie he could have made up, know.
As the guy who deals,
hopefully he just admitted I screwed up. But,
as the guy who deals with the money side of the transactions, people get pissed real quick when something isn't right or you've done something wrong, and then you don't go out of your way to fix it. So, and again, mistakes happen. I made a mistake on a deal probably a month ago, but I was able to fix it and make some concessions on my end and make it all happen the way that I originally stated it. And it's funny.
That's what if we make a mistake like that, for me, like it comes out of my paycheck, and thankfully I've never had to do that. But that's always like, if all of a sudden they're like, wait, $1,000 for this thing, like that's not what we agreed to, blah blah blah. And if we trace it back, and I'm like, crap, that's on me. Then it's like, you know what, I will cover that. I'll pay for that because it's my mistakes, my problem. I'll fix it.
Yeah. And I've found with some of the like lenders and real estate agents who are bigger teams, like I always tell people, just be cautious of them. Like they close a lot of business, so they're good at what they do, but there is a chance if you call whoever is actually on that deal that they don't have any idea what's actually happening on that deal. They're the salesperson, and then they hand you off to their team that takes you to close. So if you call them at 9 p.m. on a Monday night, A, they're probably not going to answer.
They're not going to answer.
And B, if they do answer, they're probably not going to have any idea of what's going on.
They're going to have to call 4 other people, none of whom will answer.
And that's so guys.
Which I would say is, again, that's parallel to our music stuff. You know, I mean, we talk about this all the time, and from an artist level, do you want to be a new artist, Zach Stone, walking into Universal Records and competing with Kenny Chesney and, of course, I'm not going to remember any Universal artists now, but competing with Carrie Underwood and Kenny Chesney,
Brothers Osborne over there,
and it's like they got a lot of other people making them way more money than I am. So like, why are they going to bother with me? And it's sort of the same thing. If you're working with this team of realtors that's doing, they're not selling 10 houses a year, they're selling 1,000 houses a year, and it's because they got 15 people on their team all working together on stuff. And so, are they going to care about your $300,000, my wife and I just got married and we want to buy our first home? I'm not saying they won't. I'm just saying when it comes down to, should we spend more time on the $300,000 people or on this $4 million, developer deal we just got? Like, probably going to spend a little more time on the Carrie Underwood, the Kenny Chesney than we might on this new artist over here. But vice versa, if the big people do decide to spend time with the little artist, they can go, yo, you know what? Kenny Chesney's one of our artists. Why don't you go on tour with him? And it's like, oh, that's the greatest thing ever. You get all these perks of working with the big boys. Versus if you're at a small label, like Kelsey Ballerini at Black River, she gets anything and everything she wants because now she is the top dog at Black River. She's not competing with Kenny Chesney. She's not competing with whoever. She is their bread and butter, and they got to keep her happy and give her anything and everything she wants. And so they work their butts off to keep Kelsey Ballerini happy. And so that's...
We should talk about agents' names just the same. Talk about superstar people.
Yeah, so
that's just be real. Like, who's the worst agent in Nashville?
Top 5. Here we go.
I'm sick of this.
But it's like, but Black River then at the same time, as a new artist, if I go in Zach Stone at Black River, they maybe don't have as much leverage. They maybe don't have the radio team that Universal has. They don't have all the perks and all the things, and they can't get me on tour with Kenny Chesney. But they've got a dedicated group of people who really want to see somebody else become Kelsey Ballerini. And so that's pretty cool too. So there's pros and cons to both. And, that's the thing I tell people, like, I don't do 100 deals a year. That's not me. But the best part of that is you get someone who spends all his time working on your project.
Yeah, those 10 deals that you do, every aspect of it. I know,
inside and out. And I had a friend, she's a fantastic client, and she works with a really good team here in town, and I really like her and some of the other girls on that team. But they're a team. There's, I think, 9 of them or something like that. And And so she listed a home that was in the same neighborhood as mine. She called me and was like, hey, I saw you got a home listed here. So we were talking about it and how the market was going and all that fun stuff. And as we were sort of talking about that, I was like, well, hey, whenever you do your open house, like, let me know. I'll stop by. I just love to see the place. And she called me, and she calls me before they do their open house. And she goes, hey, we actually sold that house, or we're going under contracts. We're canceling the open house, so please don't come. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. Congrats. I was like, well, that's awesome. How'd it go? And she's like, I have no idea. And I'm like, oh, well, did they, do you feel like the buyer is happy with what they got out of the house price wise and everything? No idea. No. And I'm like, okay, so what? She's like, yeah, I'm out of town right now. And she's like, I don't know. I just got a text from somebody else on my team that said the house is under contract. No open house on Sunday. And I'm like, okay. So again, I'm like, but what if I was your buyer? Like if I'm your buyer and I'm calling you and she's like, I don't know, hey Christian, how much money did we get for my house? I don't know.
Yeah.
But somebody, you sent me the contract and we signed it. Yeah, I'll have to call them and ask what was in that, which goes back to the agent who's like, I should have read the contract. It's kind of like, man, I feel like personally, I would want, I would want one person that's really heading that battle. And that's just kind of me, that's my preference. Yeah. And that's how I sell myself on that is I am a dedicated human to you.
Yeah.
And
if you're selling 100 houses a year, you'd have the different.
Yeah.
I'm so busy. I mean, I see so many, like if you're a doctor, I see so many patients. I don't remember what the prescription is on your personal thing, but and to 10 deals a year guy has a whole different.
Right. And to their credit, again, they're both good. It's great. It would be great to be signed to Universal, just like it'd be great to be signed to Black River. Mm-hmm. There are beautiful, positive things about both. The marketing power and the team that they have behind them when they're doing 100 deals a year and things like that is hopefully great. Hopefully that's why they're doing 100. But it's hard to be a big business, and that's why a lot of them fail. That's why, sometimes you grow too big too fast. You can't keep up with it, and then you don't get that personal touch. I have a friend who we went to college with. He's an agent in town, and he has his own team. He started his own team. He's a fantastic agent, but he got so busy that he started bringing in other agents to work under him. And we had another friend of ours post on Facebook, I know I have realtor friends, like I just don't remember who they are. So, I know only my friends are seeing this, so comment who the heck you are. So, of course, I hit him up and said, hey, man, yeah, I'm one of your realtor friends. And he's like, oh, hey. And my other buddy hit him up too. Hey, yeah, I'm also one of your realtor friends. And so he went with our other buddy, which is great. Again, he's a great agent, got nothing against him. And so I was like, that's a valid choice. Well, when they closed like 2 months later on their new house, I noticed our buddy wasn't in the photo. Mm-hmm. Instead, they were with a different agent who I happen to know is on our buddy's team. Mm-hmm. So again, they went and said, Dan, we've been brothers a long time. I really want you to help me out with this. And you went, that's fantastic. Can I introduce you to Josiah?
Sure.
And it's kind of, to me, I'm just kind of like, yeah, but the reason I called you is because you're you. Right. Mm-hmm. Like I didn't call you for him. Sorry, Josiah. I called you for you. Like I know and trust and like you. I don't know and trust and like this other guy. So
thank you, man, and we appreciate you.
This is awesome.
Thanks, guys. we will see you soon, man.
Sounds
Enjoy
great.
your shows.
Heck yeah.